So we will move on to Alison Jenner, who is going to give us a report of the conference of the Liberal Democrats in the UK. So with that, I will hand it over to Alison.
We have a conference that every year there's one in March and another one, an autumn one in September. And we've just come back from the March spring conference in Harrogate. We feel we did really well this time. I'll tell you a little bit about the Liberal Democrats and women. There's a history of a discrimination against sex realist or gender critical members. Back in about 2018, Lynn Featherstone sent out an email to Liberal Democrat members about LGBT History Month, saying that those of us who had questions about transgender claims of rights were supposed feminists, that we weren't really feminists and we should leave the party. Well, the link is no longer works. That used to take you to the party website, but there are still news reports extant about them. And I remember it well. I had been thinking, should I leave? And then being told I ought to, I wasn't going to be pushed out just for having scruples. But ever since then, there have been accusations of transphobia levelled at members who've spoken up about issues that affect women. I've had quite a number of complaints against me since we spoke at the first online conference about trans women not being women, trans men not being men, etc. But they've always been decided in my favour, thankfully. Once we formed Liberal Voice for Women, we wanted to hold a fringe meeting at conference, have an exhibition stand there like other party bodies and organisations that aren't officially party bodies, but also exist within the party as members. Each time, each application had been vetoed. We wrote to the party leadership and we got no reply. Eventually, we decided that we had to take this further, and a legal case taken by the chair, Dr. Zoe Hollowood, me, and the Liberal Voice for Women executive was made. We didn't want to crowdfund at the time, as we wanted to try and solve the problem positively and hopefully avoid a court hearing, if possible. So we halted the case when the general election came up, and eventually, once the party had got good legal advice, we recently were able to conclude it satisfactorily by the party sending a letter to every local party, every regional party, and the party is a federal party, so the party in England and Wales and Scotland, every official organisation, bodies such as Lib Dem Women, who you would think would be working for all actual women, LGBTQIA+, that's the alphabet people, Young Liberals, LD Campaign for Racial Equality, etc., telling them that gender critical members must be treated equally with any other members. And we are absolutely delighted with that. It's official. And a comment from within some of these groups have been incorrect. Suggestions that we have been bullying the party, which is the usual sort of Darvo that you probably are familiar with. The fact that the Liberal Democrats have undertaken no longer to discriminate unlawfully against members in good standing who are sex realists and critical of gender. And here in this country, this is a protected belief. It's protected under the protected characteristic of religion or belief, or lack of belief. And so, when we're accused of being Nazis, of course, we're not like Nazis, because Nazis and anti-Semites would never get protection for their horrible beliefs. And we're satisfied that the party will not indemnify members against claims for unlawful discrimination. The party's told regional parties to let us have a stand equally with other party groups. And the members' code of conduct will or should support any future discrimination, claims of discrimination against us, and we'll be able to take action if that's the case. Now, things aren't perfect. Things are, people are still going a little bit berserk about this, but part of the result has been to enable us to have a stall at the same rates as other party groups, which are not official AOs, they're called, official party bodies. And last September at Brighton, we had our first stall in the exhibition, but it was at commercial rates, which was, eye-watering. No fringe, no advertising, anything like that. And a few members then went crazy, accusing us of blackmailing the party. Instead, what actually happened was we had been able to ensure conformity to the Equality Act. So a couple of weeks ago, we were able to advertise our stall and fringe event in the official bulletin, have our fringe not in some remote hotel far away from the venue, but absolutely in the heart of the conference venue. And even more members came to our stall to sign up or discuss what they did or didn't agree with and take away our leaflets on various topics, including men's violence against women and girls, as well as women's rights to single-sex spaces. And we were very fortunate in that we had some volunteers from the Women's Rights Network, a big network across Britain, who helped to hand out flyers for our fringe events to delegates waiting to register and enter the conference. Last year, because I had been suspended because of complaint, I was outside giving out leaflets saying, come and disagree with us, come and disagree with us, go on, come and have a go, see if you don't agree with us and see if we can change your mind. But actually I was inside in a meeting, and so we had some conference, some volunteers outside giving out our leaflets about a fringe and our leaflets about what's wrong with the motion that was going to be held. I'll come to that in a minute. So Friday night, the first night we were there, we had a fringe in the conference venue, absolutely full, in mid-30s in the hall and 35 online via Zoom. We had really great guest experts, Dr. David Bell. Some of you will know of him. He is a retired psychiatrist. He was a staff governor for the Portland and Tavistock NHS Trust. Here we are, that's the gentleman in the middle. And he raised alarm after staff, psychologists and psychiatrists, relayed their concerns over the youngsters being put through JIDs without proper screening, focusing only on gender and ignoring many comorbidities such as previous trauma, autism, sexual assaults, youngsters with ADHD. And you'll see this huge spike that we've got in the little picture here in the rise of girls being complaining of gender dysphoria, which haven't been an issue. You look back at earlier years, mostly it was boys, young men. Our other experts included Professor Sally Baxendale, a specialist in clinical neuropsychology at University College London, and Kate Barker, who's the chief executive of LGB Alliance. All our speakers were excellent. David was relaying the worries about gender overshadowing, Sally explaining how important the CAS review had been and how important it was to move forward with the recommendations, and people making unsupported claims about the review, how they were wrong. And Kate Barker showed a startling statistic and a visual for gay children at JIDs. Here we are. This is the proportion of lesbian, gay and bisexual people in the general population, 2.5? And the next picture, that's the proportion of lesbian, gay and bisexual youngsters at the JIDs clinic at the Tavistock. It's absolutely enormous, isn't it? And out with our experiences. So people have been asking for copies of these slides, and they were really shocked about this. And part of the audience actually included senior people, ostensibly checking that there was no trouble. So hopefully they now have a better appreciation of what we're about. And the fringe event is now up on our YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that later on that you can have a look at in the chat. The big debate on Saturday morning was on, it's called F9, motion F9, free to be who you are. This was really the first time there has been a proper debate for years, and the first time that factual arguments have been permitted for years, if ever. It has been, there we are, that's the motion. What's wrong with motion F9? Our volunteers were handing out leaflets to everybody about this, and it's been a turning point. Numerous members, including elected members, again came to our stall to tell us that they agreed with us. The leadership, we think, needs to accept this and be braver in acknowledging the truth. There were some excellent speeches against the motion F9 on Saturday. In total, 5 speakers against were called, including our chair, Zoe, and also Deirdre, a biology teacher, Toby Keynes, who spoke as a gay man about his concern for the conversion therapy bill, outlawing all conversion practices, which of course we think includes trans and gay kids. Natalie Bird, who recently won her case against the Lib Dems for their discriminatory treatment of her, she was understandably nervous about her reception, but still bravely went up to speak. She focused on the Gender Recognition Act and an excellent speech from Zoe and from former MP and MEP Chris Davis, who really gave an astonishing speech about the whole phenomenon. We posted his speech on social media, and it's actually the pinned post on Lib Voice 4, number 4, Lib Voice for Women, if you want to have a look at that right now. The conference voted to withdraw an amendment that merely noted the caste review, so no mention of the caste review at all, and voted for the motion as a whole, full of gender-affirming care and demedicalising the process to gain a recognition certificate, which would allow men and women to have a false sex birth certificate. And basically, demedicalising is code for basically self-ID, although the party said it's against self-ID. They voted for an amendment to give gender-affirming care. We wanted to, but the majority voted against, delete lines on self-ID. On the spousal exit clause, there's a clause in the Gender Recognition Act which allows for each spouse to be able to use the interim period of 6 months for them, either of them, to annul the marriage. It's been totally changed, and the marriage of a man and a woman has now been turned into a same-sex marriage. We also wanted to stop enabling people who say they're non-binary to have not their actual sex, but an X on their passports. But anyway, they voted that down. A number of speakers for were absolutely amazing, and the alt facts that were in play made you gasp and stretch your eyes. And the chair of LD, Liberal Democrat LGBT+, summing up the debate, gave several pieces of false news. For instance, gender affirming, only 1% of people regret undergoing gender reassignment, whereas there are estimates of 30% or more from Lisa Littman's work. You'll probably know that a lot more people don't turn up to follow-up treatment because they don't want to go back to the people who've operated on them. Puberty blockers have been given out since the 1980s, but of course not for long term, and for a proper medical problem with risk of potential harms having to be weighed and balanced in the prescribing puberty blockers for people who have precocious puberty very much earlier than normal. She also said that males who trans have no sports advantage, and we know obviously that is not the case. There's post-pubertal male advantage, and gender identity is fixed between ages 3 to 5. Now, we understand that that's not true. That's counter to, for instance, Piaget's findings on child development. And now this will interest you. She declared that 2 billion people live in the 30 countries which have self-ID, with no case of a man falsely claiming to be woman to enter women's spaces. I thought I'd ask you, if you live in a country like Ireland, Germany, India, Brazil, or others with self-ID, to send us some of the problems you've encountered with women's single-sex spaces being ignored or breached or removed. And you can send them to us at info@liberalvoiceforwomen.org. So now it's official Lib Dem policy. However, we arranged for some polling to be undertaken. We had some polling with YouGov. They interviewed 628 adults, of whom 584 are actually still members, which is quite a good poll number. 76% of Lib Dem members thought that the current process for achieving a gender recognition certificate is about right or not demanding enough. We wanted to ensure that parents were informed about school children wanting to transition, and 61% of other Liberal Democrat members wanted the parents to be informed. We asked, should the caste review be supported? And more members wanted to accept the findings of the review, 4 times as many at 35% as the 9% who were against it, and 20% who wanted us to remain neutral. 63%, a big red ring there in the second line of the first page, 63% of members agree that the spousal exit clause should stay. Campaigners, including trans speakers at conference, call it a spousal veto, but as I say, in fact, either spouse can apply for an annulment. In relation to puberty blockers, that's the middle one on the second page, 54% of members thought that they should not be available to children under 18. Only 25% wanted puberty suppression for gender questioning children, and 21% didn't know. Again, RSE, that's relationships and sex education. We asked, YouGov asked the respondents, should parents be able to see teaching materials for RSE? 71% are in favour and only 17% against. And finally, even given the result of this motion, we felt that we had a fair chance to speak for the first time ever. An experienced chairman was introducing 1 for, 1 against, 1 for, 1 against, and we haven't seen that before. But now we need liberal-minded people, men and women, former members, to support us in working with members, rank and file of members, to press for change of policies and the adoption of policies supporting reality. If you are or know an ex-Liberal Democrat, ask them to contact us and join us and try and make change in our party. The poll was of 628 adults were polled, of whom 584 are still members. Our email address is info@liberalvoiceforwomen.org,